So compared to what we just did, this is going to be infinitely easier. So let's go ahead, let's just select these internal faces here. And we're actually going to build out a bit of a loop, I suppose. So let's do an inset on these. And now that we're done the inset, you know, it's all nicely in line with everything. Let's go ahead, apply that shrink wrap. I've just noticed, I don't know what's happened here. I'm just going to pull those back on the X because they seem to have been misaligned at some stage. And I can sort of see a little bit of bumpiness in there, but that's definitely something we can clean up. We'll come back to that in just a second. I've just noticed that. And let's go ahead and select these again. And let's extrude, and that will go in along the normal Z-axis. And I'm just pulling that in just before that metallic part starts on the interior there. And what I might actually do, just to make this a little bit easier to work with, let's go individual origins, normal, and let's just go scale Z0. Just flatten these out. Put that in a little bit more. So it doesn't match exactly, but it's fine for what we need. And let's do an inset to get that inner metallic part, and then let's extrude in one more time, and we can just sort of bring that into the depths of whatever, because I dare say when we light this, and we can probably do some texturing techniques to make this appear darker than it is to fake a little bit more depth. So I think that's pretty good. Let's just go ahead, select everything, and clear the sharps because we don't want sharps on our model. And I'm not even sure, I don't think we will need edge creases on these, because what I'm thinking we can do is actually do an internal loop. And just keep these kind of square with one another. I don't know. Won't see, because I don't even have the subdivision turned on yet, so it's hard to say. So let's put that on. Yeah, look at that. How nice is that? We've got those nice indents on a curved surface and very, very smooth surface normals. I can see a little bit of bumpiness in there, but that's okay. We'll fix that up. So yeah, I don't think we're going to need an edge crease on there. Let's just go crease these ones up. I don't know, we might do the edge crease as opposed to that internal edge loop. I just kind of feel like it gives us a little bit more control over things. How good is that? So actually, come to think of it, I feel like this has got more of like a bevel to it than just like a hard edge. So let's go ahead and dissolve these. And because we did that inset, so now we've got like an extra bit of padding on the outside, right? What we could do is, let's go ahead, let's just dissolve this external one. And so now we've got like a massive bloody bevel. Let's go ahead, let's select these, and I could do this in a non-destructive way with a bevel modifier. Let's do that. Just in case, look, if you want to edge crease this with the loop that was there, or however, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. I'm just going to use a mean bevel weight of 1 on this. Get the bevel modifier. Probably should have turned off the subdivision surface first, because it is going to very heavily dislike this. Let's just leave width type as offset. Let's change the limit method to weight, so it's only affecting these ones in here. Oh yeah, and by the way, I should have mentioned, I switched over to Blender 4.3 about halfway through this tutorial. It won't really impact much of the workflow, but I completely forgot it will actually change the way these bevels work, and 4.3 actually handles it in a much, much nicer way. For this one, it's probably not going to be too impactful because we're only using this one edge bevel, but just, yeah, I completely forgot to mention that. But anyway, so we've got that. I'm going to give it 4 segments. And the amount... Oops, let's just bring this in. Because, yeah, you can sort of see... Well, actually, you can almost line it up here. And the subdivision should happen after the bevel? Before the bevel? Okay, bevel, then subdivision. Okay. Yeah, that looks much nicer with that bevel as opposed to the crease. Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, and I'm thinking we can probably do some texturing tricks when we get to this. I reckon we just probably texture the interior as black. Just gives it a greater sense of depth. Because it probably looks a little bit weird here at the moment, but once it's all textured, it will look really nice. And I've only done the bevel there as opposed to doing Control B because this is non-destructive. So, you know, if later down the track I'm like, oh, actually, you know, I want a larger bevel size, I can just adjust this at the drop of a hat. Accidentally turned it off. But, you know, I can just adjust that as I want. And it's not permanently, you know, baked into the topology, so to speak. But as for the front here, because this is not resolving very nicely. So what I'm going to do is, because we've still got our face group here, right? Let's turn the bevel and the subdiv off. So we've still got this face group, but we don't want it on the internal faces here. Oh, sorry, the inset detail is probably a smarter way to describe it. So I'm just going to go ahead, hide all these first loops, unhide everything else, and remove. Actually, sorry. Did one too many there. Oh, God. And it brought back these when I undid things. Sorry, we don't want these, I don't believe. Let's remove that. I think that's the profile that we want. Then, if we get our Shrinkwrap again, go faceplate and face. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to put the Shrinkwrap above the subdiv, turn the subdiv on. Just have a look at this. I can't really see it here. I wonder if it's going to be of any benefit to get our faceplate Shrinkwrap, turn on the subdivision. I think that might just help smooth out these vertices. If we put that subdivision onto the Shrinkwrap, then it's got more points to refer to. Let's apply the Shrinkwrap. And I'm just going to put the bevel on just so I can see this. Let's just use a harsher matte cap. I think that's resolved it. Yeah, I can't see any bumpiness there anymore. That looks really nice. And coincidentally, it kind of rounded out the top here for us a little bit. I know we've got the subdiv on, but it kind of rounded that out a bit for us, which is nice. It's starting to give more of the profile that we want. But yeah, you should be absolutely stoked with that because that's a pretty difficult piece to pull off, and we've got some pretty good, damn good topology there to support all this. So you should be very proud of what we've got here. I can probably see some areas that I can clean up my topology a bit more, but just maybe do that one there. Didn't do a thing. Awesome. Yeah, look, it's not 100% perfect, and I know I've been crapping on about, you know, adjusting the topology, but I'm pretty happy with it. But yes, point is, you should be stoked with that because that looks absolutely fantastic. And we're almost at the finish line with all of this now. So I've noticed that we accidentally introduced a bit of an error here. I'm just going to change my matte cap back. Just turn these off so it's not so sluggish. But so where we had these, you know, nice 90-degree corners, it's all rounded out now. And the reason for that is because we used the subdivision surface to Shrinkwrap to, so that we could smooth out the front of our helmet here. I completely forgot, if we just go and get our faceplate shrink, all we want to do, and you're not going to see it reflected unless we change the viewport display type, but I'm not going to bother with that because I'll show you the effects of it. Just select all the outer loops or edges and just go Shift-D and 1 to add a crease value of 1 to everything. And I'll show you why we're going to do this. We're just going to fix up a bit of a problem here. I'm going to, sorry, not edit mode just yet. We need a Shrinkwrap. We need to target the faceplate with the face vertex group. And then what we're going to do is, just because we've got the Shrinkwrap, we can move this wherever we please. I'm just going to put the vertex snapping on. And I'm just going to push this up and out so that it matches the corners for where these should have been. That one looks a little bit out of whack, but that's okay. Just bring that back to where that would have been. Same with that. So it looks like some of these might have gone a bit out of position, but it's okay, we can just adjust. Oops. Just that. This back edge might actually all be out of alignment as well. Yeah, it is a little bit. There we go. That's better. Yeah, so I just completely forgot to crease up the edges before we use the subdivided version of the Shrinkwrap. So we can just apply that, and that's fixed up. Fixed up those positions. I also sort of noticed down here, oops, just because we were trying to make the loops for our vent pieces, we sort of destroyed the support loop here, which is objectively a bit more important. So what I'm thinking is, it's probably a bit unnecessary with the topology, but actually, no, let's do this instead, without the bottom one selected. Actually, can we do the bottom one selected, or is that going to screw it up? No, that works fine. I'm just going to bring that just to focus in on this, because we're actually going to have plenty of support through there with the bevel that we've got. And just to show you that, I'll just turn on the wireframe, because that's showing, yeah. So you can see we've got plenty of support through there, and like this is obviously a subdivided mesh. Well, the corrected subdivide with our topology. So yeah, it works fine, and then we can just add that nice sort of loop back in there as well. Oops. But anyway, let's get into building out the rest of the helmet here, because we don't have an awful lot left to do now, which is really fun. So let's start by building out the interior here. So I'm going to grab, just trying to think, we could do this with a solidify. My keyboard is not responding properly at all. Okay, that's better. So we could do this with a solidify and choose a bunch of vertices to solidify. Let's just give that a try. Let's see. So let's just call this solid, maybe. Probably a smarter name for it. Assign it to those vertices there. Let's just test to see how this is going to work. Let's go solidify. Let's go even thickness. Should we do only rim? Yes, definitely only rim, because we only want to push this in. Vertex group solid. And I think this is just going to make the process a whole lot easier. Yeah. To push everything in, and I'm going to use the side view because this will give us the appropriate depth to push this in on. And so we'll go about there, and we can do some manual adjustment to line that up, but I mean that does most of the heavy lifting for us there. And I think this edge here needs to be completely flat. I don't think it pushes in like it is there. But let's just go with that, because that really helps take a lot of the guesswork out for us. And then the beautiful thing about this is we can just do edge slides with C to extend along that normal. Bring these in, and we'll sort of lose a bit of reference for where they should be sitting exactly at a point. Now, before I adjust these positions, what I'm going to do... Yeah, I thought this might cause some problems. I'm just going to delete these bottom two vertices, and with all of these edges selected, bring it to the side. So I'm just going to select this vertice last, so it's the active vertice, and then just go GY and snap that into the front. And that's not perfectly aligned, but that's okay. Also notice this isn't actually straight on its own capacity either. Actually, let's make this just a little bit easier. Let's actually delete these, because we're going to have to fix up some of the alignment here. I think we just need to sort of bring that vertice out a little bit. Select those. And this is going to be a little bit hard to tell, but I'm going to use sort of like extrapolate where this line should sort of run. Just try to imagine that in my head. So maybe down like there, maybe. Might look good. And I don't really have a front view reference for where they should be sitting. I kind of feel like these might need to get pulled down a bit as well. Oh no, I can kind of, yeah, you can just kind of see at the back of the eye there where they should be. And now it's no longer aligned here, so just gonna pull these in. And then I'll just do an edge slide to sort of fix that one up. I think that looks pretty good. It's looking pretty even. And I know it's clipping at the back there, but that's not really too much concern. My biggest thing is just, I'm just going to hide the faceplate, is just sort of having this vertice align with the back here, just so it's sort of sitting flush. So I might just move that forward just a smidge. And I might just do an edge slide on this, just even that out a bit. Something's gone terribly wrong in the center there, which would just be a result of our solidify. It's also made some internal faces that we don't want, but not to worry, that's pretty easy to fix up. I kind of feel like we've lost a little bit of the shape there, so I'm just going to bring that down just a touch. Yeah, it's sort of clipping into the bottom bit of the faceplate, but that's okay. Alright, so now what I want to do, because that's sort of coming into here nicely, I just want to adjust this and try to keep in mind that it's going along this curve. So I'll do an edge slide, C, and just drag that down, just extend it, just to keep that circular shape going. And I think that should work better with like the curve that comes through on the front view here, and make that nice and straight at the back. And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go extrude, scale X on 0, and I'm going to use this top vertice, and with our vertex snapping again, just snap it to that top vert there. And it's probably going to have to come in a little bit further, but we can probably just keep that isolated to the bottom part here, since that's the only part that you'll really see extend further in behind that area. Fill in that face, and let's just see what the space do here. Might just do it to there. I think that looks nicer. And let's crease this section up so we can actually see. Oops, not 1, sorry, 0.55. Just so we can start to see the effects of our work. Oops, I enabled the bevel. Hey, look at that. That looks really nice. and there is a horrific error going on down the middle. Is it because of the bevel? No. Okay, something has gone wrong with... I'm going to guess that the solidify modifier is causing that. I don't know why, but I'm going to select everything down the middle, so just all these middle vertices. I'm just going to go by distance. And it's also occurred on the faceplate. I don't know what I've done wrong to cause that. But fortunately, that's an easy fix. I'm going to put the subdivision surface back on just in case I've missed anything. This is very bizarre. I don't know why. Huh. Okay. Why does that happen? Because I swear the vertex group that doesn't make any sense why it's done that. So does that mean on every non-manifold edge there's doubles now? There is too. That's really annoying. Has it affected like everything here? Like if I select this, does it have... Huh, okay. What about like some of the interior edges? Has it done that, or has it just done it to... Okay, I think there's a reasonable way to fix this, because I don't want to run a merge by distance across everything, so I'm going to select one of these edges like this, and then... no, edges as opposed to vertices, and do... Yeah, select all the faces around an edge. There we go. And then I'm going to go Control plus just once. And then by distance. And that should only dissolve the edges that we want. This shouldn't have interrupted any of this. And if I just do it across the whole thing, it removes nothing. Cool. So I know it worked. I know it didn't remove anything we didn't want it to. Okay, there you go. That's rather bizarre, but there's a way to fix it. Okay. I did not know that was going to happen. Okay, I'll be more aware of that for the next part, because that was a bit weird. But anyway, we fixed it. It's all good. Okay, so yeah, we want to do that same thing for the faceplate, but just keeping in mind that the solidify acted a bit weird there. I'm just going to separate the faceplate and do this independently of the rest of the mesh. Now, what we don't have is a great idea of the depth. Actually, we might kind of a little bit, because I guess it sort of links up with where this curves up to. So we can probably take a guess at that. But I think the only part we really want to do a solidify for here is just the inner eyes. I don't think we need to really worry about anything else. So let's select this all the way up to here. And, oops, yeah. So let's assign the solid vertex group to those vertices. We'll get a solidify modifier, even thickness, and only rem, vertex group solid. I think this is going to cause the same little error. I mean, mind you, it's going to be localized this time, so it's only going to be affecting this area, but it's still very odd, and it's not really... I wonder if it's just going to be easier to do this manually. I think it is, because this is just going to cause a lot of problems. So, alright. Don't think it's going to be effective for this one. I'm just going to remove the vertex group while I'm thinking about it. It's not really necessary to do as such, but just for the sake of keeping things neat. Alright, so let's do this manually instead. Might take a little bit more work, but that's alright. So let's do extrusion to push this in. And we can check it on the side. I think that would be pretty much just perfectly in line with it. And I've just noticed this isn't really all too straight, is it? So let's just select both of these. G-stretch. Yeah, that's sort of just taking a bit of the wonkiness out of it. My keyboard keeps on going completely unresponsive. It's really annoying. Alright, let's see if that fixes it. I'm just going to bring this in a little bit further. So I've already sort of got it roughly where I want it to be, so I'm just going to do an edge slide just until it clips into the rest of the helmet. Like so. Look, we could model this all together and connect it all up. I was definitely contemplating it earlier on, but I don't really think it's worth it. Yeah, you'd get nice connecting crease points, but it just means we've got to do so much more unnecessary retopology to accommodate for it. And I just think the results will look just as good if we do it as a separate mesh for the faceplate here. And honestly, probably make the baking a little bit easier as well. Not going to have any dramatic impacts on anything, so I think we're pretty fine to do it like this. Speaking of, I'm just going to go ahead and hide the helmet. And let's grab the middle vertex here. This is probably going to be a fairly manual approach to this. Just angle that up a bit. Because I think we're just... I mean, we could try to select everything here, duplicate it, scale it in until parts of the match. So I was just looking at this one for that to match in, and then check it from a side view, pull... Actually, let's grab this, make it the active, pull everything back on the Y, and vertex snap to there. Which is kind of working. Yeah, we can probably pull that down on the Z-axis a bit. So it's not all nicely aligned, but this might be a less manually intensive way than what I was initially thinking of doing. Just pull that in a bit. Yeah, I think this might work a little bit better. We're still going to have to do a lot of vertice pushing and pulling, but I think this should work nicer. And 1, 2, 3, 4. I think these vertices are supposed to be over here. Just bring that in. Bring that in, because when we scaled it, we sort of changed the shape of it all a little bit. And I might just pull that up a bit and flatten. Oh, actually, no, hang on. I'll pull that up as well. I think it will cause clipping, but I think that's what's happening on the actual model. Space all those out so they're in the proper positions. Alright, and then what I'm thinking is we just go ahead and just manually tweak the rest of it. So we'll just push these in on the Y, so we'll just align. Yeah, we'll just align all of these back on the side here. Let's try to bring them up on the Z-axis first. Actually, we might have a little bit more room to work with, and then we can adjust it on the side profile. It's unfortunately a little bit of a manual and tedious process, but I'm going to select between points, space those out. It's a bit wonky. That's not right. Looks like it should be in the right position, but it's just definitely not. This is why I wanted to use the solidify, but let's just try to do a relax operation here, because even what I've made is pretty iffy, but I think once we relax it, it sort of brings them into line. I'm just going to move this vertex up just to sort of make that more of a gradual fall off here, for it to sort of align with the back section. Space those out. And I can see that's not in the right position, so I'll just pull that out on the x-axis a bit. Yeah, there we go. So now it all lines up nicely on the curve. You even saw when I did it, I sort of had very wonky vertice placements. But just, going ahead, using that relax operation, just doing some more manual tweaking, you can eventually get it to be nice and smooth like that. So look, mine wasn't perfect. Don't fret if yours isn't perfect as you're doing it, because that relax operation should save you a bit of guesswork. And we can just fill in all those faces, and we can fill in this one here. And with that, I might actually just go ahead and just do just a little bit of cleanup through here. Just space all these out. Yeah, I think that's pretty nice. So, yep, that brings in some depth to our faceplate, or at least part of it. Just crease these up. And I think I might just keep this as an independent object from here on in. We can join it all together later on. I think this just might make the asset management a little bit easier. And when we use our subdiv, that's looking really, really crisp. And subdiv the rest of it. Yeah, look at that. Turn the bevel on. Actually, I'll just remove the bevel modifier from this part of the helmet. Yeah, look at that. That's looking phenomenal. Awesome. Okay, I'm just going to turn that off just so it's not churning along. Alright, so now we sort of want to get the front part here blocked out, because then we can do the tubes on the side. So I think the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to have a look at doing a relax on this. So I might even do that on this internal loop. I just want to see what that does. Oops. Yeah, not much, but actually, I might just space. Actually, no, sorry. Once again, being pedantic, I'm just going to cut this as a straight edge, and I'm just going to space these out. Oops, no, space. There we go. Okay, so let's get this ready for blocking out this area. We don't really have enough reference to ensure that we're going to get this correct. And if we don't get this correct, then it can sort of lead to a whole lot of problems with, where this vent area is and the housing for that. So I think the smarter thing to do here is, because we actually have a lot more reference for where this vent housing sits, right, for the tubing. So I think it'd be a lot smarter if we go ahead and model this, and then, extrude it in, roughly line it up, and then we've got more reference for where, this edge in here should sit and how far that needs to come in, and any changes in the grade along that curve. So I think that's a much smarter way of doing this, as opposed to freehanding it, causing a bunch of errors, and then coming back to it at a later stage and trying to fix multiple meshes at the same time. So what I'm going to do here is, in the side view, I'm just going to try to get my 3D cursor somewhere in the middle of this curve here, or this circular bit, I should say. So I'm just going to guess there. It's probably not accurate. You don't need to be accurate either, because I've got no idea where this exists. And we'll just bring in a circle at that point, and we'll change our vertices to 42. Probably seems like overkill, but bear with me. And let's go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees along the Y. And what we're going to do is just tap into edit mode here. And we're just going to fill an edge between these two vertices. And then we can rotate it 90 degrees on the X. And the reason we're doing this is just so we have a straight line to kind of help with a point of reference for what the angle is. At least with a straight line, we can sort of tell how much we've rotated this thing by. So I'm going to pull this back along the Y until the leftmost edges sort of clip in with the 3D cursor's black edges that are running vertically on our screen there. And once I've done that, I'm just going to drag this along the X and try to have the red dot intersect with an edge of the design there. So with that, I'm just going to go into edit mode. I'm going to select these two vertices here and then just go cursor to selected so that we've got a center point. And I'm going to scale this down to try to line everything up. So I've scaled this, right? And you can see at the bottom here, this curve matches nicely with the bottom, but it doesn't with the top here. So let's just start to rotate it to try to get it to line up. And so you can see why this, well, hopefully you can see why, having this edge here just sort of helps. We can sort of tell how far we've rotated it. It sort of gives us a bit of a grounding base to work with. So rotate it that much. I'm going to scale this up a bit more. And I might rotate it up just a touch. And so I kind of feel like it's spilling outside the bounds at the top. It sort of fits nice at the bottom here. So I might just actually just use G and just sort of drag it down a bit. And then we just reselect those two vertices. I'm just going to scale it in just a smidge. And I think that works pretty well. So what we're going to do here is, if you notice at the bottom here, if we follow this curve along, right, so it comes along, once we hit this middle vertex, it kind of naturally just flows off to the rest of that edge, right? Like it looks nice, it's got nice curvature. If we do the same for here, right, so we follow this edge along, if we follow it to here, and then try to follow this, it sort of, I know my drawing is terrible, but there's sort of a point where it divots in here. Whereas if you follow this curve along and you get to here and take it off, it sort of flows a little bit more naturally. So we're not actually going to cut this object in half perfectly, right? So we're going to select that vertex. We'll select that vertex and we'll select everything just before the middle vertex here. And we'll just delete those verts. And so we're not going to do this just yet. I'm just doing this as an example. But as we extrude these out, you can see that it sort of follows things a little bit nicer. We're probably going to need to do, I can just tell from doing this that, we're probably going to need to do a little bit of adjustment on some of the scaling and position and whatever. We can always just drag these into a better position, but I think we need to do a little bit more scaling to get this correct. But we're on the right path at the moment, and we're not even the whole way into this yet. So we're going to want to do a lot of these rotations in object mode that are coming up, and the reason we want to do this is so that when we do the rotations, it transfers into the object's normal orientation. And so just to show you what I mean by this, if we just change our orientation type to normal, I'm going to rotate along the X and see how our Z axis is now pointing more diagonally. That's why we want to do this, and it'll make more sense in just a second. So I'll just go to global just to make this make more sense for the time being. So let's just pull this out on the X. And all I've done is I've just tried to have the topmost vertice align with the edge on the design here. And so with that, we'll go into edit mode and we'll just put that top vertice as our 3D cursor point. And then with that, we're just going to rotate. So just press R, we don't need to choose an axis because it will rotate on the Y from the front orthographic view. And we're just going to rotate this until it hits an edge here. It's kind of hard to tell exactly where that should be, but I'm just guessing around there. Tap into edit mode again, we'll select the start and end vertice, and then we'll go cursor to selected. It's going to put it in the middle. Now, this is where the normal orientation is going to come in handy, because if we swap over to normal now, you'll see that y-axis is nicely in line with our rotations. And then if we rotate the Y, as we pull this back, it sort of very nicely lines up with the rest of the curvature. Still not perfect, but it's getting there. I'm just going to select this vertice here because it looks to be the most central with everything else. Just cursor to select it again. Once again, make sure you're tabbing out of that and back into object mode. Just going to rotate on the normal x-axis here. And so you can see the top here is pretty well nicely aligned. It's still not perfect, but you know, it's getting there. And I can sort of see that a lot of this has fallen a little bit out of alignment on the side here, but all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use G. It's going to sort of bring it down and back a bit just to start to line it up a little bit more. And I'm just going to go cursor selected to that vertice there. I'm just going to rotate this a bit on the normal Z. Just a little bit. And I'm just going to scale it a bit as well. And just push it in and down just a little bit there. So it's not perfect by any account, but I think it just sort of helps it line up just a little bit more. I might even just push it in on the X a little bit. Actually, no, instead of pushing it in on the X, let's go here. It's almost, I just want to get this top vertice here just a little bit more in line there. So I'm just going to go rotate Y. Just push that in just a little bit. And that's pretty good. It's not going to be perfect, but I think that's the most hassle-free way of doing this. So now if we tap into edit mode and let's just go ahead and extrude these edges again. I'm just using the bottom one as a point of reference because it's a bit easier to follow. So I'm just pulling that to where the steel bit meets the blue part. And you'll notice that these lines aren't actually parallel. And this really frustrated me when I was trying to figure this out in my own time. But yeah, this top line here and this bottom line here and this one here and this one here, it's not parallel. So if you took it out to infinity, they'd eventually converge. It's really frustrating. That, or the other plausible option is that I'm completely misreading the design, which is, probably the more likely part of these things. But let's go with my very convincing sounding thing that it's not parallel. Okay. So the problem with extruding those out is that it's not going to line with anything else. So all I need to do is just select them and we can pull them out on the global X value. And we can pull this one out a little bit more. So this is a very frustrating shape in a lot of regards because it curves in and then back out. It's on an angle. It's a circular shape. There's just so many things that are really frustrating about this design. So I'm hoping that using the different orientations and different pivot points helps. I found that to be the most reliable. This is the 5th time I've tried this now, and I've gotten very consistent results with it. So if you need to try it again, just repeat that section. Go ahead, because it took me a handful of tries. I'm only showing you the good outcomes, not all the bad ones. So we can go ahead. We can fill in a face there, and let's just go ahead and select this edge at the back, cursor to selected, and with that, actually, while I'm thinking of it, sorry, let's select that edge again, and let's just grab a copy of that edge normal there. Select the outside, we don't need that edge. I'm going to use our 3D cursor as our pivot. Let's extrude and scale out. Now, I'm looking over on the left-hand side of the screen, and I'm just waiting for these vertices to hit that divot. It's about there. This is the other annoying part of it, right? It's not like... it's not a perfect circle in every aspect. Once again, I could be just misreading the design, but when you're seeing the same thing as I am, you scale this out and it doesn't, conform properly. Could be... maybe, hang on, let me test something here. Let's go back, because I've only tested this my way. Let's just go back here for a second. I've just lost that normal edge there. Let's just test something, because I didn't even think about this before. Let's apply the scale. I wonder if this is what I was doing wrong. Let's extrude, scale. Nope, same thing, doesn't matter. Okay, so yeah, it's really wonky, really weird. But that's not going to stop us. So once we scale this out to this edge here, it's going to select this vertex because it looks like it's in the center. And we could check, because what we've got 21 vertices, so it's an odd number. So what, your 10th or 11th vertice would be the middle vertice. So what would that be? That's 10. So yeah, the 11th vertice would be the middle vertice because it's an odd number of verts. So we'll go cursor to selected. I'm just going to select all of... actually, no, I'm not going to select these back ones. So I'm going to select all these. I'm still using that edge normal that we grabbed before. I'm going to scale this on the Y axis. So I'm going to look at the top here and not the bottom, just because I know this will align better. And actually, sorry, I just realized what we're doing. We will select these back vertices, scale on the Y and bring these out. So I'm looking at the top, remember? And what I've done here is I'm sort of looking at the middle here. So I know this is completely overshot, but as I said, these are not parallel lines. So that's completely overshot everything, but I'm just looking at the middle here for that to line up. And the reason we're looking at the middle is because now we can deselect those back ones, sorry. Looking at the middle because we want to do a scale on the x-axis. So we can bring these vertices back. Still looking at the top, not worried about the bottom at the moment. And so that's sort of just nicely coming into line now. Select these two. I'm just going to scale on the Y. And so now that's pretty nicely fitting the mold of that shape. We can adjust that later. I'm not worried about that right now. Look, this is the other weird thing about it, right? So we've done everything very evenly, right? We've been scaling evenly from pretty well the exact center of this design, and yet the bottom does not line up. How frustrating. So we're just going to do some manual adjustments to this one. So we'll keep our origin at the center. Let's just go scale Y. Let's bring that in. And now it's good. So it's really frustrating, right? Because we did all the hard work at the start to make this nice curved surface, and then when you actually scale it out, it's not perfectly curved on the outside. It's really bizarre. It's really, yeah, I don't understand. But that's the best way I found to do it. I hope that it makes the least amount of errors on your end when you're following this. But as I said, that's my 5th attempt at it. It took me hours off screen to figure it out, so yeah, if you need to do it several times over, don't fret, so did I. Once we've got that all aligned, we're going to go back to using our global coordinates, and we're going to pull this in on the X. just all about here. So hopefully you can see that there's a little bit of a beveled edge or a creased edge here. So we just want to get this to line up there. And we can just E to extrude again and pull this in on the X. And we can really pull that in as far as we want. It doesn't really matter. I mean, technically you could pull it right into the middle if you wanted to. Do whatever you want with it. I'm just going to pull it in an arbitrary amount for the time being. And then with that, I'm just going to select these top two vertices, and I'm just going to use this edge again. Just pull it down on the Y, just so that it matches up along there. And that's pretty good. It's not 100% accurate to the original, but it looks good enough. And then we can worry about this interior bit of detail. So we can just use the Inset tool and press B to do it to the bound, so we don't need to worry about the parts at the back. And just roughly. So yeah, once again, you can see it's not perfectly aligned, but it's not the end of the world. It's still going to look nice. And we can just go back to global, and I'm going to extrude and bring this in on the X axis, sorry. Once again, just an arbitrary amount. I don't have a set way of doing that. And just thinking, we can probably delete that face because it will get covered up by the circle that we'll place at the back. And we can do another inset there. This is going to be a part of the helmet that's never going to be seen because it'll be too shrouded in shadow, no doubt. Let's bring a subdivision surface onto this. 4, and let's go ahead and crease up our edges and have a look at the nice result that we've got there. Look at that. Isn't that nice? So, I did notice one thing in doing this, right? There's sort of a bit of a visible, like, seam, crease, something going on at the tops and bottoms here. I can't figure out a definitive way to smooth it out, but I found one method that works pretty well, and it's using the relax operation, which I'll just show you. It seems like it'd be problematic, right? Because, oops, I've already given away the secret. It seems like it'd be problematic because it does this, right? It evenly, well, I don't know, it's not even, but it distributes that last vertice, right? And I'll just do it for the interior here. But what I found, and as I've already spoiled, I never knew this until maybe an hour ago. If you untick regular, it will run the operation and not cause that annoying thing at the end. I don't understand. Actually, I wonder, can we increase the iterations? Does that smooth it out a bit more? 1 compared to 25. I feel like 25 makes it worse. I'm just going to go with 1. But yeah, if we uncheck that regular box, it sort of, or at least I think it sort of smooths it out just a little bit more. I can still see it, like it's still there, but I think it just helps smooth the shape out a bit. And even this one at the back here, just because, oops, I did not mean to make that a camera. Control plus is what I wanted to do. We can just scale this to be Z0, just so it, you know, resolves to be a flat plane. Actually, what we could do, I just wonder, I haven't even tested this, I'm just going to do it now, see if it works, because I think it's a spacing issue, possibly. Space these. No. Oh, actually, hang on. I've got one more idea. Let's try this. Let's cut a loop here and a loop here. Okay. Cut these together. Slide these down, and I'm just going to do this so it roughly looks like the other edge. And then let's just alt select these, shift hide, and let's select all of these edges. I think this might sort of fix it for us, and let's just relax that. And then if we dissolve that edge, that's still sort of there. Oh well. Yeah, it didn't quite do what I wanted. That's alright. It's not the end of the world. But yeah, there we go. So that's a little bit of a tricky one there for you, but hopefully that helps. And then we can just go ahead and join this in with the faceplate, and now it's on both sides. And oh yeah, actually, we can add this detail in because this is just going to exist as its own separate piece. So I'm just not even going to bother moving where that is. Just going to cut it, let it go in the middle. Then we can do a bevel it out roughly to be the width of this inset. Do that. Do another cut in the middle. We could have just maybe done 3 segments, or 1 segment, sorry. And then with that, I'm going to go Alt-S, just drag it in a bit. Like so. And I might just give it a bit of depth. Just go Control-B on the middle of that, and just crease these 4 edges. Turn these on. And there you go. We're starting to get much more of the design and feel into this helmet. And now we've got much greater reference point for where things should line up when we go ahead next and extrude out the cheekbone part. Okay, so first thing we're going to want to do here is we just want to separate this from the faceplate. Let's go ahead, get rid of the bevel and turn off the subdivision surface. And we're going to do this because we're going to use this, or at least part of it, as a bevel later on. And the reason we're going to do this as a bevel is because we didn't want to use bevels for the vent because on the faceplate, I should say, because that would require a lot more alignment of vertices. This one isn't so dependent on that because these are still going to be separate meshes. Hard to explain, but trust me, once we do the the Boolean, I'll show you why it works. And yeah. All right, so let's go ahead, select this inner edge here. And you can sort of see, like, we've got this back line here is roughly parallel with, the edge that's running down the front of our helmet here. So when I extrude this, I'm not actually going to extrude exactly to this point in the middle there. Let's get rid of the 3D cursor. To there, I'm going to do it just a little bit back. So I'll show you. I'll bring it down. So I'm trying to keep this line on the helmet and the line that I've extruded roughly parallel. And also sort of line it up with that corner. I'm going to select that vertice, make it the active, and then set our 3D cursor to be there so I can use it to scale things. So we'll scale on the Z, and I'm looking at the bottom set of vertices at the moment, and I'm trying to line up the bottom vertice to sit flush with this row of verts here. I'm going to scale in on the Y and just bring it to where it should be sitting at the back here. So then what we can do is we can push this to the back, so I think it should sit sort of around there. So we can just readjust our 3D cursor. And then obviously this is way too far back, so let's just scale in on the X. Now with this little cheekbone part, so I'll just scale this all the way in so that the very bottom vertice is sitting flush with itself at the front. I don't think this looks particularly nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it out just a little bit further. I'm just going to have it sit here just so that this back part here has got a little bit of an angle on it and it's not sitting perfectly flush with itself. I think it just looks a little bit nicer. Cool. So, you might be thinking, like, well, we could have done all that without the vent housing part, right? And yeah, we could. But there's a hard part without it, and I mean, we could have modeled it afterwards, but just for the sake of the flow of things. Because notice how there's actually a bit of a gap between the cheekbone part here and the pipe housing. And that'd be really tedious to try to line up, you know. One, you know, try to get the correct grade of everything. Two, line up all the vertices, blah, blah, blah. Sounds really painful, right? So let's just go ahead, unhide the housing part. That's at least what I'm calling it. And let's go ahead, let's select these two rows of faces. Let's just duplicate those. P to remove by selection. And I'm just going to hide the rest of the mesh. Now, before we do the Boolean, let's just go ahead and get rid of the mirror and the subdivision because we don't want either of those. Let's fill in a big old polygon there, and here, just so we close off the mesh. I'm also just going to get rid of all the creasing data because I don't want that to transfer. Let's select the faceplate. I should really name these things. I think I did, and then I'm pretty sure I lost a save, and I've had to redo this a handful of times now. All right, there we go. So we've got faceplate object here, and for clarity, let's call this Boolean, just so we know what we're doing. So let's select the faceplate. We'll get a new modifier, and we'll get a Boolean. We can use the eyedropper, select our Boolean mesh here, and using bool tools is objectively easier, but let's just change this to bounds. And so we can't actually see anything at the moment, which is fun. Oh, hang on. It didn't select. There we go. Okay, that's what I was expecting to have happen. So yeah, we've got like this big mess here. It looks awful. We can fix this, just drag the Boolean all the way to the top. Now we can see what's going on. That's better. So I'm happy with that. But as a word of warning, before doing Booleans, I always like to make a duplicate of the mesh that we're cutting into, just in case something goes wrong. So I've made faceplate 001 here. I'm just going to get rid of the Boolean. I'm going to go M for move, making a new collection just called backups. Create. And I can just toggle that off. This is just in case something goes wrong. I'd hate for you to put all this hard work into modeling the faceplate, do a Boolean, screw it up, and you've just lost hours and hours of work. So just make a duplicate just in case. So once we're happy with the way this is sitting, I think this is pretty good. Maybe not 100% exact with where everything's lining up. But it lines up with our model at least. So, we could make adjustments. We could sort of, let's actually, we could address this. I'll just check that on so we can see where the vertices are sitting. I'm just thinking, this might be a matter of, let's go GX and pull it. Let's go GX and pull it. What direction is that going in? That's pulling it further in, actually. Okay. So I'll just do a split view to make this easier. Oops. So do a split view. I'll just put this at the front. And so I'm looking at this screen here. I'm just pulling the X handle here. So I'm looking at where this is sitting, this edge here that's being generated from the Boolean. I'm going to pull that in on the X. Oops, that's gone too far. It's broken it. We'll go about there. That's sort of pulled this in a little bit further than I'd like, but just for the sake of trying to keep it consistent, I think that should work. And also, that sort of, this shows part of why I don't like Booleans, because if I pull this just a little bit too far back, everything goes really wonky, goes really weird. So that's part of the reason I normally stray away from Booleans, because they sort of have a tendency to go a little bit weird sometimes. Even here, I've got no idea why that's happening. I can't explain Booleans at the best of times. So, I don't know, is it because of this? Is it calculated things strangely? Anyway, that's not a bother. It's very easy to get rid of. So, anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. I know it's sort of adjusted things more than I'd like. Actually, even this part down here, it's not really sitting where I want. Screw it. I don't want to waste any more time on it. It's good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. I'm just going to just move this into its own collection. It's called Boolean, just for organization in case we want to come back to it. Okay. So I'm just going to L select this. I've got no idea why I had a fragment there. Alright, so this is why I hate Booleans, personally. Because now I've got to do all this mesh cleanup. It's really not that hard. But it's just a bit painful, right? And this one's not too bad because we don't need to worry too much about lining up our vertices between the objects. It's not going to break the silhouette too much. There's a couple of points here that we're probably going to want to line up, and I will try to make that more obvious for you. But for the most part, I don't think we need to really bother about it. So let's just bring in this side part here. I'll just tab back into edit mode. So I'm thinking the only edge that we're actually going to need to bother about lining up is probably this one here. And the only reason I say that is because this vertice defines where it goes from curve to straight line. And we could probably try to line up some of the other ones, but I'd say this one's probably the most important. So let's go merge at last. We'll probably do it for, I don't know how important these ones would be. Let's just do it for the hell of it. Merge at last, merge at last, last, and last. I think the great thing about this is I'm going to almost pretty well ignore it by doing a space. Alright. So yeah, I'm going to the best that I can, I'm going to get these vertices to line up with, where I can see these other edges coming through. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it for all of them, but I'll give it a red hot crack and we'll see what we can come up with here. So actually I might select those ones as well, then select this one as the last one, merge at last, so that lines up. Merge at last. Merge at last. I feel like this is going to cause some issues here. Let's merge this one at last. Yeah, so we've definitely got more topology on the inside, which is of no surprise. And it might look a little bit inconsistent if we don't line them all up, but we'll just wait and see. If it's not too hard to line them all up, and I know I'm saying that and this is completely misaligned, but I'll show you why. It's just in case this does line up. I've rehearsed parts of this tutorial, and other parts you will see me figure it out as we go. Go to last, last, last. Oops. Okay, yeah. So, because this lines up really well, I think it would kind of be stupid to not then line this one up. So let's just go ahead, hide this. Is that the one I wanted to hide? No, hide this face, sorry. Let's cut another loop. And let's go K, cut this in. Oops. Cut this in. And we'll cut that in. And I'm just going to go between these points. Just do a very quick cleanup, sorry. Let's go to there. Because these loops direct in different areas. Space. Yep, that's fine. I'm happy with that. And then I'm just going to hide this. Just want to check that we don't have any rogue vertices. So kind of like that one. There we go, cool. So yeah, look, Boolean Cleanup in that capacity is not too bad, like pretty easy. Fortunately, our poly counts actually lined up between the two, which is really nice. Well, mostly lined up. I can actually see that we've made an n-gon there, so that's fun. And do I want to make an extra cut to accommodate for it? Not really. I mean, I don't see the harm in it. We've got this many vertices as it is. Is that a terrible attitude to have towards topology? Yes. 100%. But it's my model. I'll do what I want with it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just going to throw that in for the hell of it. I could have just merged this one down and then, redone all this, but I just can't be bothered. I'll teach you bad practices. No. Okay, cool. So, we've done that. I think if we look at the edge here... Oops. It's not as creased as I would have thought it would have been. Okay, that's interesting. It's probably because of how long these edges are on the outside here. On the inside, sorry, I should say. Let's go shift 0.55. I think 0.55 is a little bit strong for what I like, so let's go 0.33. Yeah, that looks nicer. Don't ask why I work with 0.33 and 0.55. It's just a habit I got into years and years ago, and it's just sort of stuck with me for whatever reason. So that's looking pretty good. Yeah, nice. And so, yeah, so you can see by doing that, it's sort of helped us get this nice shape. But as I said, there's like a bit of a gap, right? So it doesn't actually perfectly flow into itself. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn off the subdivision, turn off the bevel, is let's just go ahead and make a loop cut, GGEF, because we want it to go to the inside. And let's just bring this in just shy of that. Then we can select the inner loop and we can just delete those verts. And with that, let's just extrude this in on the X. And then we can just do back to our bounding box as opposed to our 3D cursor. Let's just go E and scale in. And we'll just have those meshes clip through one another. Yep, that's fine. And then do that. And that will just give that little bit of depth in between these. Now, would I normally be an absolute sadist and advocate for joining these? Yes. And I mean, we could, but I think we can just leave these as separate meshes. I think I've put everybody through their paces for, you know, sort of testing out your capacity for, you know, solving nice complex topology at the back here and whatever. So let's just leave these as separate meshes. I think it's fine. It's not going to drastically change the quality of our model at the end of the day. Right, so if you're familiar with my Mark 6 Gen 3 modelling series, this next part will be a bit of a refresher, if not a little bit familiar, because we're going to use some curves and arrays to make the tubing here. So let's go and just click to put our 3D cursor here, because it looks roughly in the middle of this circle. And we're once again going to stumble across something that infuriates me about this model, well, at least the reference images, and that is that as we line this up once again, so we've got the edge near to the 3D cursor, and scale this in, it's not a circle or something. I don't understand. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense, right? And then it gets worse when we look at it from the side view, because if I pull this forward, sort of line this up at the middle, right? And then if we rotate it, it doesn't line up properly. It's really frustrating. I don't understand. I'm not saying that I'm not doing something wrong, because that's completely within question. But I don't get it. I don't know too much about the Warhammer universe, but like a circle's just not a thing. No, but anyway, I'm not too concerned about the fact that it's not going to match perfectly. I'm not going to bother about trying to skew this or anything like that, because it just seems totally unnecessary. So I'm just going to use a circle that looks like this, and then in edit mode, I'm just going to fill in this face, and then extrude and pull this back on the normal Z just until it clips back into the rest of the helmet, and I'll just fix up the normals. Cool. So we've got that. We can put that little bit of inset detail in afterwards. Now for the fun part. So let's go ahead and duplicate this face here. I'll just separate it by selection. And what we're going to do is going to extrude this out on the normal. Just going to pull it into the middle there. I'm going to make one loop cut down the middle of it all. Select this front face again and scale everything in. And just roughly match up that shape and design. And we can probably, actually, because I didn't scale this in to begin with, let's just scale this down a bit. And then we can just scale this front face up a bit as well to match. There we go, that's better. So we've got that. Now, if we press Alt-R, we can reset the orientation of this and rotate this 90 degrees on the X-axis, and there's a very good reason for why we want to do that. It'll make more sense in a bit. Let's go ahead, delete this back face here, and let's just set up a mirror modifier to mirror on the Z, and we'll just apply it straight away, and then we can just go ahead and dissolve that middle vertice, sorry. And it's a little bit of a problem with this. It's probably a bit too chunky for my liking. So actually, let's go back, sorry, to address the thickness of it all. Be easier when we've still got the mirror modifier on. Just use clipping and push it in on itself just to make this a little bit skinnier. I think that looks better. Cool. Okay. So now we need to define a curve that connects from this to the inside of this. So what I'm going to advocate for is with this piece that we just modeled, let's go cursor to selected. We can just hide this. Let's bring in a plane, tab into edit mode, and let's just merge everything at the center so we have a lone vertice. And let's just call this curve because it's going to be hard to select after we deselect it. Then in here, let's go ahead and select these two vertices, cursor to selected, and we'll select our curve again. We'll E to extrude, and then we'll go selection to cursor and pop it in right over there. Let's add in a loop cut, and I'm just going to isolate the view. And with the loop cut, cool, turned off rotations. It's going to go GX, align this with this vertice, and then GY, align it with this vertice. So we're sort of using the same logic as earlier, where we just want to align things for bevels, so we want to overshoot everything. And then GZ, and I'll just snap it down here so that it sort of takes into account the fact that it sort of goes on a bit of a decline. Now, as for the bevel shape, I don't have any concrete way of measuring this out or getting a good pass on it. So what I've done is just Control-Shift-B to bevel. I'm using about 5 segments, and I'm literally just pulling this out to a shape that I think looks good. So that to me looks cool. If you want to know exactly, the offset's 0.416 with 5 segments and a profile of 0.5. I've got no idea if that's going to replicate on your end, but I'm just eyeballing this. So I'm just going to say that looks good. And then we want to do Alt-C. At least I think, if that doesn't convert, because I know I've got a custom key map set up, so if that doesn't convert to a curve, I don't... Is it under Object, maybe? Object, oh god. I do not use these menus anymore. Convert, there we go. So yeah, if you go Object, Convert, Curve, I don't know if it is Alt-C anymore. I swear it got changed back in like Blender 3 point something or whatever, and I made a custom key map to replicate like 2.79 because I can't move on apparently. So yeah, but anyway, convert that to a curve, and the origin's there. Cool. So we're going to unhide this piece. Now, we want this to be without a rotation because as we start to make this array, we want it to go out straight, which probably seems a bit odd, but it'll make sense in a second. So we want this to go out straight. But then when we get our curve modifier, and we use the eyedropper to set the curve, that wasn't supposed to happen. Brilliant. I think I just need to change the deformation axis. Oh no, I know what's going wrong, sorry. Because if I turn this off... No, hang on. What? Oh, the curve path is going the wrong way. How do you flip these things? Reverse. Okay, this did not happen last time. How do you do this? Separate, no, show, control points. Tilt, make segments, smooth, segments, switch direction. There we go. Okay, I don't know why that happened, but it's probably good that that error occurred, just in case any of you guys run into it as well. And now that we've got that, I am pretty sure we set the deformation axis to the y-axis. Yep. Actually, negative y? Yeah, negative y. Now it's all set up. If you're having any other problems with these not working, one thing with doing curves and arrays is that the curve object, so its origin point, which is this first vertex here, needs to line up with the origin point of the object that you're trying to do the array along, because as you'll see as I move this, if its origin is misaligned, it goes all over the place. And I'll show you now why we wanted this to be on a perfect 90-degree rotation. Because if I just go ahead and rotate this to try to, well, it's actually already in line technically, but if we tried to align this earlier and rotate this, see how it skews everything at the end? So that's why we want it straight. The curve will do all the heavy lifting for the rest of it. Just noticed here, just want to make sure we dissolve that middle edge, otherwise you can see it pop up on the rest of them. And these are kind of fatter than I want, so just based off of what I've done previously, I'm going to bump this up to 12, and I'm going to scale this in on the Y, but before I do that, I'm just going to turn all this on, scale this in on the Y just to make this a little bit skinnier. And I'll just look on the inside here, just so that I know that this actually goes inside. So I'll go to about there, that'll be good enough. And there we go. Now we've got that nice looking vent on there. And I don't know if it's more inward curved on the actual model. It's kind of hard to get an exact reference for these sorts of things. Actually, I should probably apply scales on these just in case it changes anything, which it hasn't. But yeah, there you go. So, and then I mean you could move this further in or out. I think on the reference images, I think it's cutting off halfway on this thing, so yeah, and we sort of replicate that stretching that you're getting there a bit. I mean, there's not too much you can do about it in the first place, but I think that's pretty good. It's, if you wanted it to, so if this curved out too much, say, what you could do is, and I think I might do it for this, I'm just going to go ahead and select this point. The 3D cursor just ever so happens to already be there. I'm going to turn on my proportional editing, and I'm just going to go scale X, and I'm just going to increase the size of this radius, and you can sort of just taper it in and out. It's not really doing it as much as I'd like it to, but actually for more granular control you could probably, without proportional editing, just sort of move these in a little bit, but it seems to sort of skew that front one, so maybe if I don't do it on there. Move it back. Yeah, maybe it just has to be like that. I'm not too concerned about it. I think it looks alright. I think it sort of actually kind of pretty well matches. I mean, worst comes to worst, if you really wanted to, and if you don't like this sort of gap that it's leaving, I mean, you could probably just go ahead and push all of this just a little bit further inward. So like just select the back circle there, the curve shape and the curve. You could probably just push that in a little bit if you wanted to. But I don't think it's really going to close that gap up all too much. So I'm just going to leave it where it is. But just so you know, you can change that if you want. And let's go ahead and press the right button. Smooth shade this. And I'm just going to crease this up. And turn that visibility off. And while I'm at it, I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete these faces because it's going to be a nightmare to unwrap otherwise. And we can go ahead and add in the bit of detail to here as well. There's just a little bevel that's indented. Bring the segment count down. Do that. Do that. And Alt-S. Bring that in a bit. And I think this is a little bit different. I kind of feel like this... I'm going to go F to get the normal. Kind of feel like this sort of sits back a little bit more, or maybe it is just sitting in the middle. Let's keep it simple. Let's just go sitting in the middle, and then I'm just going to bevel. Just add a little bit more. Oops, I undid my Alt-S. Alt-S, bring it in. A little bit of a bevel just to add some holding edges. Makes the detail look a little bit nicer as well. Shift D 0.55, shade smooth. And we can chuck a subdivision surface on this. Subdiv. Let's crank that bad boy up to 4. That's looking good. We can have a subdiv on this as well, just so we can get a bit of preview going on here. 4. And it is getting absolutely crunched at the front and back. No surprise, because we've got massive n-gons. So I'm going to delete this one, because you're never going to see that. And then this one here, just going to insert that. Shift D 0.55. And what we could do, depends how much you care, but I'm just going to do this just because I think it might make it look a little bit more authentic. Just going to add a loop cut in here. Just put it on the outside of where this vent tube is coming out of. And I'm just going to push that back in on itself. And then crease up this edge here. And we'll just do another inset here as well. And we'll do a crease on this inside edge. And I think that just, it's very, very subtle, but I think that just adds a nice little bit of depth to how it looks. And we can start to complete this look a little bit more. We've still got a little bit of modeling to do yet. But we can just go ahead and slap some mirror modifiers onto these things. Mirror around the faceplate. Do the same thing here. Mirror, faceplate. And yeah, that's looking much, much closer to the final product. So all we need to do now, and we'll do this in the next episode, is we just need to finish building out the front at the bottom here, and then fill in the eyes. And then I'm going to do a separate tutorial dedicated to doing the skull, because that's sort of a different beast to tackle altogether. But yes, we are almost there, and this is looking fantastic.